those investigations, and it was a beautiful thing. What I liked in this book was that in a few couple of places, it shows me in the light wherein Sarbajit asks whether you want to come along with us, and a choice is given. You have to make whether we proceed further with the investigation or not. And the savvy of this book, I mean, which is me, but the savvy of this book always say, let's go ahead. Since we have come this far, we will not step behind. And I believe that the savvy of the book is a representation, and Neil has captured this very well. The savvy of the book is a metaphor for all those people who, in spite of the difficulties and the challenges faced, just decide to go ahead with whoever is the main protagonist, and thereafter achieve the fruition. So I'm really happy about this book. I mean, I've read it, and I was thrilled completely on reading this book. So let me ask first. I mean, my first question is actually directed towards Suhail. Suhail, what made you actually believe that? I believe you're the first person who thought that this story needed to be told and shared. What was it that actually started, this whole the whole episode? When did you feel that this story really did need to be said?
Sure. So, what I personally feel is that I'll tell you how it happened later, but I'll tell you why this idea came about and why we wanted to bring something like this to the fore. Yeah. So, Neil and I were already working on one book, which was this realm in the non-fiction horror space. Now, why that, attracts me or excites me is, of course, because of my personal belief in the genre and the topic. And you said a very interesting thing right now, Savi. You said that, when these stories were being read or were being written, all of you were going back in time to experience, these things. Now, what happens is that when you're doing an autobiography, so to say, it's a mix of majorly positive memories and a few struggles that a person may have had. Whereas in these are cases which are not, fun and games. This is serious stuff. And to revisit that also requires a lot of courage. So I wanted to capture basically that spirit, literally, we all can learn from. As you again mentioned that Neil has written, let's go for it. That signifies, the spirit of really, achieving what you set out to. And I think that is something that people need to know, because we've had so many movies or visual adaptations which are post-centric, but here was something that we could understand from the point of view of a paranormal investigator, certified paranormal investigator, or a team of paranormal investigators. So I think that was something that set the ball rolling, and I thought that it could be very different from what the two of us had done earlier. There was a strong differentiating factor. So we read about it, about the conference, and we went over there, and it was a great experience. We loved it, and I think once it ended, so Neil and I sort of had an inkling. To be honest, when we went there, we hadn't decided for sure whether we'll approach them for a book or not, but it was at the back of our mind. We thought that let's just experience how this session goes, and see if our wavelengths can match. And fortunately, it did. So once it got over, I remember talking to Sarvajit about it, and he was very forthcoming. He said that yes, let's do so. I'd be happy to take it forward. So that is something that is also very interesting. What the central subject of the book feels, determines how a book is eventually going to pan out. So in a normal course of things, you will find some people, as I keep on saying, that if you're working with some celebrity, or any person in the industry, there are three kinds of people that you will find. There'll be one who will have no inkling that something can be written about them. So they'll be like, "Acha, हमारे ऊपर भी कुछ लिखा जा सकता है." That's one. So he said, yeah, you have such a great story. You should, So then there are others who are, नहीं यार, अभी हमने लाइफ में किया ही क्या है कि हमारे ऊपर किताब लिखी जाए. And then there is a third kind which is like, अगर हम पे किताब नहीं लिखी गई तो किसी पे नहीं लिखी जानी चाहिए. So so there are three kinds. Fortunately, this was an aberration, and Sarvajit was very humble about it all, and he was very excited. So I knew that with Neil's creativity and the enthusiasm the entire Pairs team had shown, this would work wonders. And what can I say? When we pitched it, some books even have difficulty in getting one publisher on board. Here we had multiple offers from all A-list publishers, so that's great. And I keep on joking that I tell Sarjeet that the last personal story Hachette had done was of Sachin Tendulkar's, and the next one that they have brought out is yours. So I think the entire team needs to feel very proud of it, and I think the success that the book has got within a short span of time, and it's been in the top 10 of the Amazon bestsellers, being covered by press, media, radio. I think that signifies that our belief in the subject was, justified.
Very nice, very nice. I mean, as you said, I mean, after Sachin Tendulkar, it was like Sarvajit Mohanty's book which has come out. I personally believe after Gaurav Tiwari, I think Sarvajit Mohanty does deserve a mention in this profession right now. Yeah, really. I mean, yes, I can see Sarvajit actually, just saying no. But I've seen his work. I've worked along with him, and I've
He's
been with
supporting
him.
the Congress.
Touchy times now. Okay. Okay. My next question will be for to Neil. Neil, I read the book entirely, and I've read a few other pieces of literature which you have come to. And first of all, congratulations for being the pioneer or the hem of the Horror Writers Association of the India chapter. I want to ask you what was different about this book. I mean, I believe that you have been on an investigation along with Sarvajit. What did you experience over there, and how did you actually, treat this subject differently?
So before Neil Bhai answers this question, I'll just interrupt him. He has yet to join us, but the
Okay.
book launch we are planning, we are tempting him right now to join us with all those things that we are planning for the book launch. So he's still unsure about it. But yeah, the book launch is will be a good thing to join.
The basic idea about the book launch is that they'll hide the book at some spooky corner, and then it becomes an investigation for everyone. They have to find out where the book is.
Where your spoilers, right? So yes, we are planning it. There's a lot of talk going on between us. Like we will go for an investigation, and that is where we will, talk about the book, launch the book or something like that. Because the COVID situation, and we are not having this kind of a physical launch as we usually do. So that is something that came out of Sarvajit's mind that let us do this and let us do it in a paranormal location so that it will have the exact vibe. Okay, coming to your question, Savio, first of all, thank you for all the kind words that you have thrown my way. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you a little bit of, though I did not go for the paranormal investigation, let me tell you how the book happened, how I started writing it. So the way that we wrote it, we co-wrote it rather, was that Sarvajit has gone to all these locations. As you know, there were more than 100 locations that these people, Sarvajit and Pooja, have gone to. So the first task, once we decided that we are going to do this book, was for us to sit down and take those 10 stories, which will really shake the audience. And not just that, the stories also had to have a kind of biographical feel, because I wanted to have Sarvajit and Pooja's growth to be shown through the story. That is why the first story that we have in this book is how it all began. It's about Sarvajit combating his phobias. Then later on in a chapter, we also have how Pooja combats her fears, her personal fears. So that is also a chapter in the book. And then we come to this point where there's a story known as the aborted investigation, which is turning out to be a hot favorite. I mean, some people with blue ticks are tweeting about it and stuff like that. So that story is going places.
That's my personal favorite too.
Yes, thank you so much. So that story, I'll come to that story a little later in our talk today. But that is a story which tells about how Sarvajit is a very humble person, because that is one of the investigations that they did not completely wind up as the others. It's completely wrapped and parceled and everything is done and it is set for the taking. But this story doesn't have a final end. So in fact, we discussed whether we should have this story or not. So I said that we should have this story because this story shows how human you are. It actually, we do not want to portray you as Superman, as this person who has got this super talent to, find ghosts and all. We are all humans. Some of us have different abilities and, our sensitivities are different. Maybe that is the thing that we have to speak about. And so we included that story and aborted it. investigation. And then we came to the 10 stories have a journey of Sarvajit and Pooja. Like how they have grown from being these amateur paranormal investigators, where they, was still finding out things, to now how they have become pros and professionals, and they have also investigated a battlefield. Now it doesn't get bigger than that. So I think the next one, they might probably have an investigation in space very shortly. In a few years,
Underwater. That's the plan.
paranormal experience on Mars or something like that. I won't put it past. So
Yeah.
that is the kind of thing that really worked for me,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed writing. Sarbaji told me the stories on audio. That's how he gave it to me. And when I heard the first story was about this tree which is haunted, and where people go and young people just go to the tree and they hang themselves from it. So that kind of thing, and that was a real tree, and it shook me when I have done such a lot of paranormal stuff. Right here it is, but that story when Sarvajit sent it to me, that was the first audio that he sent to me. And when I heard it, it was night, and I was alone, and I was listening to the story, and it shook me. That night I did not get sleep. Because the story is so visual that it was running on in my mind on loop, and I could see the tree. And I was also thinking, see, at that time I had not committed to join this project. So but this was the story that was the tipping point for me. So I thought of how I'll portray the tree, how I'll show where will my starting point be from, where will my where the story will come to its 3 acts. So there in the morning itself, I was like, "Okay, that I'm doing this project, and please get me on board with these guys." So that is how it happened, and I'm so happy that the book turned out the way it turned out to be,
Yeah.
and it's a journey as even with the book itself.
True.
Yes, I
True. And Sarba, I mean,
Yeah.
this question is towards you right now. I want to know that of the so many, investigations, like, as Neil said, more than 100 investigations you've been a part of. How did you choose the top 10? It's like choosing one child over the other. How did you actually do that? How did you choose? Or was it Pooja who helped you? Psychically, this is the one.
So actually, it's actually a nice question, and तब हमने सोचा भी नहीं था कि how can I just take one question and leave one case and leave another one. I
Yeah.
think what played the most important role was कि वो stories हमारे साथ क्या किए थे, as in what impact the stories left on us physically or emotionally, psychically, जो भी है, because for example the aborted investigation जिसके बारे में इतनी बातें हो रही हैं, that case was totally different from the cases we investigate. हम लोग ऐसा कोई भी केस नहीं होता जिधर we are going to the client and we are talking, sorry that will be a spoiler, but you
Yeah.
know the entire story, the way it actually जैसे हुआ था, like finding out the history of the place and the psychic readings you gave, Pooja gave, and then the final decision. We are having a chat in the group, and हम लोग तीनों के ग्रुप में जो chat है, we are having a chat of what to do with the case. It was so different, and we have never experienced anything like that.
I
Even
think that was one of the cases that stayed with us
for a long time.
very long time. I mean, it took us time to actually get over the things that we.
So yeah, I think we can talk about it now, and I think Neil bhai या फिर सुहेल भाई को भी पता नहीं होगा, but after the investigation, so we did the first preliminary investigation was done. After we had the readings and everything, and then we started the normal process जो हम लोग का होता है. And then we got the rest of the readings कि ऐसा bad incidents have also happened at that very place, and we took around 20 to 30 days to actually come to a conclusion. 20 to 30 days went into a discussion कि हम लोग कैसे conclude करें, because we don't want to support the bad. Also we can't lose मतलब हम लोग spirits को भी ऐसे lose नहीं छोड़ सकते at that very place, because the clients have called us and there is a moral duty to all those stuff. It took us around 20 days and we dodged the client multiple times. हमने calls नहीं लिया उनका. We tried avoiding them कि so that we can get some time or at least do something. And then finally we came to a conclusion, no, we should stand by the right thing, and it was a very mutual decision between the three of us. Okay, nee, this is what it should be. So this is how we chose the 10 stories. It was like the stories that left us unpacked. Even for the tree thing that Neil bhai just mentioned, वो ट्री में जब like right in front of you there is a guy who's running towards the tree. That horrifying situation, it's no less than, when a spirit is running towards you, even though it was a human वहाँ पे. बट जब आप देख रहे हो and you have no idea कि क्या हो रहा है, वो इंसान क्यों भाग रहा है वो ट्री के तरफ, there are thousands of hundreds of people running towards him trying to protect him, that emotional and physical scar जो छोड़ता है certain investigations, these are the top 10 investigations that did that job of leaving scars on our mind, psychically to her, psychically to you, and other investigators were involved, and that is how we came to a conclusion of putting those 10 stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that elephant running towards me in that current episode.
Imagine,
Right. I like the motor investigation.
That entire thing that an elephant is chasing a person. I'll not give spoilers.
I
I don't know. And fun to write. I was getting this Game of Thrones vibe when I was writing that.
We were living in.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Or at least I tried to imagine.
Only that the darkness was metaphorical. Otherwise, it was really dark. I mean, that episode is very, very different. I like the aborted investigation more is because that is where, and I'm really, really very happy that Sarba chose that to be a part of this book, is because that's a place, and even for that matter, when you also suggested that it should be a part of the book, is because that is where it is suggested that. Not all evil comes from unknown sources.
Yeah.
Some evil
Exactly.
also exists in the living.
Exactly, and it puts the other side also in a different light.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not always that the evil. The other side, it actually puts them in a different light, and so yeah, that's
Yeah. That's very true. Neil, I mean, reading the book,
Yes.
knowing that the caliber that you have, your way with words, how difficult was it to write this book in the simplified language that you treated it with? It was a thrill and a delight because I've been reading all Indian authors, and I feel they deliberately put a lot of decorative words and phrases in the book to make it sound much more eloquent. However, you have treated the book so beautifully that I think anyone who reads it will actually or experience what we have underwent in those investigations. I mean, how did you actually restrain yourself?
See, when you write horror, now then horror is to be written in a particular way because what you are doing there is you are evoking people's emotions. Now, and horror, I believe, is a very raw, stark emotion, which I do not like to encumber it, with big words and stuff like that. And what happens if we do that is our usual Indian reader, the normal average Indian reader, they might, if they are put off by the language, then your purpose is not achieved as a writer. Because as a writer, you need to talk to people. I believe that books are a way that I am talking to people. So the way that I talk, that is the way that I also tend to write. Of course, I have a particular prose way of writing it. That's we take care of it. Even our editorial team and at Hashit, we had a beautiful editorial team who, they made the phrases tighter and stuff like that. So it is it's not a single man who is writing everything. The language, the story comes from me, but then afterwards there's a lot of work that goes on in it. Now, I think that you are talking about language, but I feel that there is one more reason why the stories are so, my readers find that they relate to the stories so much. And this is from my readers' feedback across all the books that I've written. So one thing that I did, that I always do, is that I believe in projecting the human factor of all the stories. And this is one talk that Sarbajit will remember very closely. That after every story, when Sarbajit would send me a story, we would have a discussion. And in the discussion, I would always tell Sarbajit, but Sarbajit, what is the human angle of this story? Because you are talking, I did not want to make this a technical book.
Yeah.
I did not want to make this a book about just the devices and the process of exploration. That is, of course, there. But what I also wanted to bring out is, agar haunting hota hai, if booth is there or anything is there in your surroundings, then what is the impact it has on the people living in that house? Or the people who are in a haunted factory, for example. We have a haunted factory story, which is so beautiful. It is such a beautiful revenge story. Okay, so now since it is a revenge story, the booth comes to take a revenge. It's as simple as that. But If it is a revenge story, then what we need to highlight is what happens to the humans there, to the people there. And to write those emotions, I needed a particular language. Now the story is filled with dialogue. There is a lot of conversation. Now if I have Indian characters, but if I give them a language which does not sound like an Indian would talk, now that will immediately distance you from the book. So that is something I don't want to do. I have even put some colloquial and regional words here and there. So it should sound like an Indian story, and it has to have that sense. That is when the essence of the story is delivered. So I think it is because of keeping the language as common as we normally usually talk. One of the things, and the second thing is keeping the human in mind, the human angle of the story. That is what I think makes the relate.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Thank you. And Suhail, now I know it's early days right now for this book, and I mean the launch is still there to be done. How far do you see? I mean, with your experience, how far do you see this book going? Will it be inspirational to new authors or even investigators to take on this profession? Do you see a sequel coming on to this book?
Well, I think we've taken 10 stories here. He's done 100 investigations, so I see 9 more books to follow. But the jokes about no. I think the whole idea of doing this was to bring about a revolution in the horror space, and this is just the first step, so to say, because a publisher like showing that much faith in the book gives you a lot of reassurance. And I think what it also does is that because it's a big publisher, they bring it out, distributing it well. So, it reaches the masses. So for masses, who complain that probably there's not too much of horror that can spook them or, interest them too much, here is a book that can, solve their problems. Because while, I was growing up and I was reading, there weren't too many real, horror books. Ipshita Roy Chakravarti was probably the only one who had done a couple of books, in the interim, but there wasn't anything else. So the point is, and I always say that the scary part for me in any story is the fact that it actually happened. So here you have 10 such stories, and you can envisage that whatever is being said over here isn't a figment of somebody's imagination, but someone has actually experienced that, which is what it makes it scarier. And at the same time, what everyone, these two gentlemen have done is that they've brought out information and knowledge which would otherwise at times probably be technical, or
Yeah.
could be boring. They have infused it in the storyline very seamlessly through dialogue, so that when you're reading the story and are engaged, you also get to learn a few things as to how these things work. What does X particular thing mean? Which I think is very creditable. So I'm all for it, and I think this book it already has started doing well, and it will go international. Neil was just mentioning to me that he has written something, in his group, which has the likes of Stephen King and R.L. Stein and so many others, and an article around the 15th is going to be published on that. So that's just one of the many things, and I'm absolutely sure and confident that it will do very well, just like it is doing now. So it's been a privilege. It's been a privilege to work on this, and I would just like to take your leave because I have a prior family commitment, which the time for which was announced after I had committed to this. So I still took out half an hour, and now I'll have to go. But thank you so much for having me over. And the book is wonderful. To anyone who's seeing it, please buy it. Do yourself a favor. Read 10 really amazing stories written down in an extremely interesting manner. And support good literature and good people who are out there talking to you right now.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Thank you, Suhail.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Suhail. Thank you, sir. And anybody wants to, publish his own book, I mean, that's Suhail for you. You can actually anytime approach him, and he'll be, helpful enough to guide you through the entire process. And now that brings me up to Pooja. Pooja, throughout the book, I mean, you've been, I mean, completely, assisting Sarva. I know, I mean, for personally, but this is for our viewers to know that you have been completely assisting Sarva. Throughout the book, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you've been playing second fiddle where he's there right on the ground and you've been providing the background intel for him to get into the war. How important, how important is the role of a psychic in these investigations? Or is it just about, just going onto the, field and performing these investigations? What do you say about this?
Okay, so see, as a psychic, it's whenever we go for an investigation. So we have a particular process that we follow. So even before we go on field or before we actually go for the investigation, it's very important to read, the pictures or the information that we are receiving, because we receive a lot of even I don't know if I can use that word, but fake things. So it's very
Yeah.
important to filter out the genuine cases first thing. So as a psychic, we it's that's my job to do that. And once we are on the field, like even when those who have read the book or those who are still reading the book, we visit places which are huge. They are spread across, and it's not possible to investigate the entire location. So as a psychic, it's my job to find the hotspots, and that's a term that we use. The places which are very likely to have more of activities going on, and so that's it. It kind of creates a roadmap for investigators to of how they want to actually go about through the rest of the investigation. So that is how, as a psychic, it helps before the investigation and even during the investigation, giving the little details here and there, and plus guiding them through the process. It's so that's how it helps throughout the process.
That's right. And we have a
So,
question over
I
here.
put in a,
Yeah.
have you? I can put in a little bit here about how also Pooja's contribution in the story. Because every story that we structured, so Sarva was he made it very clear that Pooja is an important part of every investigation, and Savio is an important part. So he named everyone. Shiva is an important part, and
Yeah.
he told me that what are the roles that everyone played. So in his narrations, the book was. I'll also tell you here how, and this is a reflection on how humble Sarvajit is, because the book was supposed to be only about Sarvajit's exploits. There was no reason to have the whole Pairs team itself. I would even go to that extent of saying that. But Sarvajit made it very clear that everyone has to be on board, and these are stories that we have done together. So then we said that, and I also agreed that this is the best way to write a story because it is a team effort. So we have to show the team. So every story that we begin, we have Pooja's psychic reading coming at the very beginning of the chapter. Even before Sarvajit's groundwork, it is Pooja who sees the pictures or something like that and does the reading, and she finds out that what is wrong with the place. So it is mostly her who is pointing the entire team in the right direction. That is the way I saw it, and that is the way I have portrayed it in the book.
And
And I'm very happy that.
And I
if-
know that Sarva himself is a very good psychic. However, I mean, he tends to, he tends to put more of his focus into his investigations. But I know he's a wonderful psychic himself, and how he mutes himself and lets the other people take it on. That actually explains a lot of his humility also. I mean, I can vouch for it actually because I've worked with him and I know exactly what he is. There's no need, but I think to talk about it, I think, but the viewers need to know about it. Sarva, how do you do this? How do you actually completely mute yourself and afterwards, you take it forward? Because I know that you can go onto a location and you tell us whether this location is worthy. The points that you bring forward are phenomenal. So tell me more about your ability over here and how this has come out in. I mean, I know Pooja has given a lot of readings, and I have also given a lot of readings, and that have come in the book. But I know that you can do this yourself as well. So when you go, what addition do you bring on to these investigations?
Yeah, actually, adding to, like, before you answer, I answered this question of yours to just add what you just said. के reading जो आपने दिया था या फिर जो पूजा ने दिया था, and the reason I made sure that everyone has to be a part, not because also because they're team members, because an investigation, especially जो pairs करती है, it is not just from one point of view. Just one person cannot go to a place and say कि यहाँ पे haunted है, यहाँ पे ऐसा claim. So that is just bullshit. Sorry, that's not how pairs operate. Pairs has its own protocols. You are one of the oldest members of pairs, and कि pairs के कुछ protocols होते हैं. There are times when we have not agreed with you, you have not agreed with us, we have not agreed with each other, but at the same time we come to a conclusion where it's like, okay, ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है. So it's such an important part, and also that thing was very much important to keep what Neil Bhai was saying is keeping me like showing the human aspect of me, because I'm having some, for example, like you just said, okay, how do I shut my psychic abilities down, and I focus mainly on the devices or the things that are happening to me physically. If I am completely focusing on that, there is another aspect of investigation that I'm completely losing, and that is the psychic part, or the way the spiritual world is affecting your senses. Because I am completely shutting it off. I'm literally creating a shield that I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you. If you want to do anything, you can just do it on my device, you know. And that is why people like you, people like Pooja are so important in this investigation. And the reason I shut it off, because I depend on people like you or people like Pooja, because I know if I'm shutting my abilities off, I can completely depend on what Pooja is saying or what Savya Bhai is saying. I remember most of the times, even I think there's this story, the courthouse wala story in Mallarpur.
Yeah.
You know, the first thing I do, we do after reaching the place is we click photographs and we send it to Pooja, because and the reason I depend so much on both of you psychically, because I've seen how perfect readings you people give. And I still remember the day, the Mallarpur wala case. I just click a photograph, and I think it was the initial days of pairs, I believe. And I just clicked a photograph, and I sent it to Pooja. There are other things that are happening, things are setting up, and sab kuch ho raha hai. It was still time for investigation. And then 5 minutes later, I get this message, and he's like, वहाँ पे डांस वगैरह होता था कि लाइक व्हाट द हेल, मैंने कुछ बोला भी नहीं है. I just sent a photo, and I think that was the very day whereas I can completely blindly depend on the readings I'm getting from you people.
And one thing that I would like to mention here, during the initial, I mean, एकदम starting का time जो है, initial times, I will not stop myself from saying this, but I used to doubt myself. There were times when I have doubted myself, but gradually, as we went on and, I started the readings and all, it was his confidence in me that gave me confidence that I am giving the right answers. So that's why when he said that wahan dance hota, I was actually doubting wahan dance hota tha kya karke, you know. So he was like, how did you know that? Yes, it was, that is what is happening or used to happen there. So I would say that, his confidence in me gave me the confidence that I'm on the right track.
And another thing, another thing to actually add to what you asked about shutting it off was ke I believe ke I don't know, I am more confident in handling the spiritual world physically than emotionally, because when it is affecting me emotionally, I might lose my calmness, which I believe is one of my most important हथियार जो मैं लेके जाता हूँ investigation में, my patience and calmness. If I lose those, I might get angry, I might start shouting, and that will be totally not how investing goes on. So to be very frank, that is one of the reasons I don't let my psychic abilities get into it. But कभी भी कैसा होता है ना कि आप भले ही मतलब वो how it is, it's like a tap, it's like a loose tap, आप जितना भी टाइट करो वो एक ड्रॉप दो ड्रॉप गिरता रहता है. So भले ही I have completely shut it off, but still there is 0.1% the vibes, like the moment I'll enter a place, I just know something is wrong. The vibes just give out that. I just like उतना ही चाहिए मेरे को और ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं चाहिए, बाकी बंद कर दो. That's how I've shut all of them off.
And Pooja, I mean, you and me both, we both are psychics, and we know exactly. I mean, we might be having different methods of reading, but then can you explain it for the benefit of our audience right now over here? Like when you see the photograph, actually, what do you analyze in that?
I just basically connect to the energies of that place. So I would say it's more of metaphysical. It's more related, to the metaphysical point of view, that I let go of my mind. I don't allow my mind to interfere, because that's something that I need to differentiate whether it's coming from my mind or whether it's something that I'm catching from that place. So it's very important for me to shut my mind off. So I definitely choose to go into the meditative, in the meditation where I can actually shut my mind and I connect to the energies of that place. And once I am connected to the energies of place, whatever I'm receiving, whether it's visuals, audio, impressions, as a download, I just go with that. So it's basically connecting directly metaphysically to the energy, whether it's a place or whether it's a person. So I directly do that.
And I think यही aspect है about all three of us and Shiva is that what makes the stories so different, because it is not just the stories from एक इंसान के point of view से आप नहीं देख रहे हो. It's not just one person claiming कि हाँ मैंने भूत देखा है or I experienced the paranormals. There are multiple people who are agreeing or disagreeing to one fact before coming to a conclusion, and I don't think there will be. I don't think, as in, I don't think apart from all this, there's anything else that will make the stories more humane, or it will give us this human factor कि यार हम लोग भी जाते हैं, हम लोग की भी फटती है, but still we have this courage, or that we have people around us who help us to go through these phases, and this is what makes the stories different from other books as well.
Yeah.
And
And that is why-
Savio,
yeah,
I
yeah.
would like to ask the same question to you.
Neil bhai, you were also saying.
Yeah, you were saying something, Neil.
I just wanted to say that, as a story writer, that gave me a lot of tadka for the stories, because there are places where both of you are not in agreement.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Pujit is doing something and Pooja is saying something. So I used those your conflict, I would say, or disagreements to bring out a new light to that paranormal phase. Because there were always people who will believe in something and there are people who will not believe in something.
Right.
So even though both of them are paranormal investigators, it is not necessary that they will be on the same page about everything.
Right.
So that was what fascinated me. Otherwise it will be like the entire team is going towards one thing, but because everybody is a human being, there will be this disagreement, and that is what I used as a narrative device. Because if one of them has a disagreement, and if one of them says that this method doesn't work, then the other person would explain why it would. So in that way, you are actually also telling the reader something more about the paranormal world that they deal with.
Yes.
So that was a very exciting conversation. These bits which come in almost every story, they were very exciting for me to write, because the way the dialogues were constructed.
Yeah.
There is this one particular story when there is a completely new guy who has joined pair.
Yeah.
There is this story. I'll not tell which story. So in that story was this new person coming into pairs and he does not know about anything. It is his first investigation. He's a complete amateur. And Pooja and Sarbajit and of course you, Savio, you are all there. And he's asking a lot of questions and you are answering to him about what it is. So that was a story for me to explain to the readers also about how devices work and how their processes work. So that is the fun of writing. So this, Savio, again connects to that question which you had asked me. How did you make the language relatable? Because these are questions readers would anyway ask. So I tried to answer them, not in that technical way, that jargony way, but instead of it in a form of a conversation. So that makes it, I think, more, it hits home.
Exactly, and that actually it actually hit home, because even when I was reading the stories, although we have been through it, I mean Sarva, Pooja, and me, whenever we go on an investigation, there is a pre-investigative process that we follow, and then afterwards there is a post-investigative process also where we follow. Wherein even in the book you have mentioned this, that we go through the footages on our individual laptops, and we try to pick up those substances. However, I know for sure that if one of us had to write a book, I mean, it would just sound like a logbook of a paranormal investigator. And the way you have put it forward, Neil, is awesome. I mean, it's scintillating. I read the book in one sitting. I finished the book in one sitting, and yet it was difficult for me to digest that. It was us who actually went through all these things. I mean,
that is the part.
I think all of us felt that.
Yeah.
All of us felt that.
Because I remember जब ये tree का ही draft आया हमारे पास, I remember reading it out to Apurva Di. She was with us, and I read it out, just one of the paragraphs, and I was like, see, this is how it is written. And she's like, Sarva, you people went through all these things, and then I took a pause. I'm like, because I think what happens,
this also came from you, Sarba, because the way you narrated it, I don't know, and we have spoken about this before also.
Yeah.
Even at ScareCon, we spoke about this, that when Sarbajit narrated it to me, for some reason or the other, I don't know, I have a connection with them, telepathic connection or something like that, because I could actually see the story playing out. I could see the visuals of the story playing out. And
Yeah.
Sarbajit, you very well know, we have spoken about it. In one instance, I even named, mentioned the color of a car.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of,
Yeah.
And
or
we
the
both
book.
were shocked that how did he know this? Because we missed out,
You
I
hadn't
guess.
told me about that. Then I ended up describing the car, and in another place it was a death of a person which I described in detail. So
Even the
without
name
you
of,
people telling
even
me, so
one
I
of
don't
the
know how it happened.
names, even one of the
Even-
names, if you remember.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Names will be more bizarre than that. Out of millions of names, one name should
Yeah.
come to me. That is
But
the name that
I
my
don't,
character.
I don't know if that particular client, who is also a good friend, he also sponsored ScareCon once. उनका story है. I don't know if he's going to read it, but even in that story, so in all the stories, just for all the people who are going to buy or have bought the book, there is a छोटा सा नीचे लिखा हुआ है कि the names and the places, the names have been changed for privacy purpose. But we made sure कि names हम लोग नहीं लिखेंगे, हम लोग अलग ही नाम देंगे. And still after the draft was done, even though मतलब जो client है उसका नाम नहीं लिखा है directly, but there is a character in the story जिनका नाम वही है जो client का नाम है. Like how is possible? Yeah, it was actually like like the book
Yeah.
is actually haunted. I'm also promoting Neil by other book. But
As a writer, I believe that I'm just an agent and somebody else, a higher power, is making me write. So that's what I believe. The universe is telling me the story. I'm just a medium who is putting
And-
it down on paper.
And that is the same with us, Neil. I mean, a higher power, actually, when we go over there, we are the same flesh, blood, and bones who are going at different locations. But with people with different abilities and different skill sets that they use, I mean, some people are just born with it and they develop it. It's the same with us. We were born, some of us were born with it, and some of us were crazy enough to realize it later on, like even Pooja and Sarva who would shit bricks in the dark. It was the same about me. I would love to watch horror movies, but then afterwards shit bricks for the entire 1 week. And I mean, that's how we recovered out of it, out of our phobias. And then afterwards, now when we go on to locations, it's not just us, but it's some higher power who lets us know about all these things. Coming to the question that Pooja had asked me, like how I as a psychic read these locations, is I always prefer the clients or whoever is undergoing those things to send those photographs personally. I mean, click those photographs personally and send it to me. If you have clicked it from some professionals, then the professional will concentrate more on the symmetry, the lines, the depth, and the color reproduction. And that would not be very natural. It is like the modern day wedding photography. It's
Yeah.
very artificial. Whereas in the past, I mean, the people they used to click photographs impromptu and just capture moments.
Right.
That differentiates a good photographer from a professional or different one. Artificial. So when I say photographs, I first want the clients to click the photographs themselves and send, so that if there are any camera shakes, if there are any reflections in some place, or some spooky, some smoke or some shadow caught, I want to see it firsthand through the eyes of the client. And I measure the depth and the symmetry, the color, everything, and that is how I first separate the mind tricks from the paranormal and the energy part of it. And once that is done, then sensing the energy becomes very easy for me. I mean, looking at different photographs from different angles, and even if I'm not satisfied, I will ask for more photographs,
Yeah.
and then after
Right.
I'll give my reading. And as much as even Sarba and Pooja also will agree to this, most of the photographs and most of the cases that are sent to us usually don't have much of a paranormal involvement. It is usually a case of, say, about some elements misplaced somewhere and
Right.
hallucinations is coming to them, right? So that is how I do my readings. And I hope, Pooja, you have to add anything to that?
Nothing. I mean, it's just that, like, two psychics and whatever they are catching as per their capacities and their abilities, I think together it forms a perfect blend. I mean, it's perfect. It gives us a complete picture of probably what's happening there, and
Mhm.
so yeah.
Neil, I mean, you have been authors of the best-selling Yakshini and Maya's New Husband, and those were fictional in nature. How did you make this shift? I mean, what was the shift that was needed to be done from a fiction to something narrating that has happened on screen? I mean, in real life. I mean, what was the difference?
Uh, it's a difference of a thought process in the first place, because when you're writing
Okay.
fiction, you're creating the entire world, you're creating the characters, all the scenes and all you are making. And then if you want a character to go from one scene to another scene, you
Mhm.
have the liberty of doing that in any way that you want. You can build a plot as you go along. Because
I'll,
I
I'll, I'll, just,
usually
I'll
find
just I'll just interrupt you over here. I want to tell all of my viewers right now, whoever is watching and who is a budding author right now, you're learning from the expert right now. You hear Neil speak and you will become an author another, say, about 1 or 2 months. You listen to this. This is the answer you need to listen to.
okay. And now you have put a lot of pressure on me. Okay, so when you write fiction, that is the way we go about. We can create the plot the way we want, and we can introduce any plot devices, which is what I do. So right now I'm writing a novel. I'm just stuck. I know that my two characters have to fight. I know that, but how will I make them fight? So that is the question in my mind, which I am thinking since the last 3 days. So I'm just like building some kind of devices in the middle which will make them fight. Now these liberties we can take in fiction, but we cannot take that liberty in non-fiction. Non-fiction, you know what the story is. We have written Spirits Talk to Me. It is not an entire non-fiction. The reason is, though the stories are 100% true and are exactly how they happened, but they have been written in a style which is called as narrative non-fiction. Means we have written it in the way that the story actually played out.
Yeah.
So it is, instead of this long paragraphs and stuff like that, we have dialogues, we have the scene going on like a drama.
Yeah.
So that is the reason, why even the visual people, I'm talking about producers and the film industry in general, are interested in the book. And, they are also reading it because it is visual.
Yeah.
So when you write non-fiction, one of the things is that you cannot take any liberties. You have the story. Now, the challenge is to tell that story in an interest. So it is something that has just happened, but how do you tell it in an interest? So that is where Sarba and I had a lot of discussions, like where will we start the story? That for me, the starting point is very important. Where do you start the story? Because it is the first 10% of the story that the readers will look at. So, and if the first 10% is interesting, then only they go on to read till the end. So, in story writing, we have got a rule that the first 10% of the story, or if it is a movie, then the first 10 minutes of the movie is where the reader or the viewer decides whether they want to continue with that or not. So I wanted the hook to come very first. So many stories that Sarbajit told me, which had a lot of background creation, I cut it out and I started it at the point, which is mostly the point where the client is talking to Sarbajit. My house is haunted or my factory is haunted. So that is one thing that I did. Then once the conflict is established, like where is the ghost or what is happening, then starts the second part of the story, the middle act of the story, where the investigation happens.
Yeah.
So that is where I come to that place, and then I come to the resolution. Now, in this all, I could not, since it is non-fiction, I had to also talk about the technical aspects of it. Like cyber, a lot of devices, ghost meters, there are EMF meters as we call them, and infrared thermometers, and then so many things like the spirit box, which pairs themselves have modeled and designed. So I needed to put that in the story. So I needed to do research on that. I had to ask Sarbajit exactly how it works. He shared a lot of videos with me. So that research is what makes non-fiction daunting. Now, in this case, for this non-fiction, it was pretty easy for me because Sarbajit and Pooja and everyone in the pairs team was so supportive. And they would come out and give me, Sarbajit and I were on constant chat. I would say 18/7. I mean, all the days of the week, except the hours that we slept.
Sleep.
So we were on chat, and we were always communicating about how this pivot box works, how this thing works, how that thing works. So that was the study for me also. So that was good. And after Sarbajit used to tell me, I did not tell him this, but I used to Google and search everything possible about it. So that because that is one man's opinion, correct? Or one man's theory of it. So I went and I cross-checked everything that I could. I downloaded a lot of books and I read paranormal research books. and I read them to understand how paranormal stories were written. So these were all the challenges for me in writing. When just uh, take any liberty with. So I had to write that. So I read some very interesting paranormal stuff, which mostly from the US and Canadian authors and how they dealt. Because, there the paranormal nonfiction is a big thing.
Yeah.
So there were many great books out there. And in India, it is just happening. I mean, apart from this book that I wrote, The Spirit Shock to Me, I can think of just one, Haunted, which came out last year, and that was also co-written by me. So these were the two non-fiction paranormal books that we have in India here, and the research part was the difficult part. But in both the cases, my co-authors have been very supportive, and they told me what I needed to write.
Neil Bhai is almost an investigator. He just needs one investigation.
Yeah.
And now I'll ask a very and I think this answers Neil, your discourse writer just answered Mayank Singh's, one of our viewers' question. He was asking, sir, what were the problems faced by Neil De Silva, sir, while writing this book? And I think you answered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Sarva, now,
One more question, very short, that I had problem. I won't say as a problem, but as a storyteller, one thing that I had concern. I've already spoken about it, so I'll just repeat it very shortly. That the point that I did not want the book to be very technical. I wanted the book to talk about what is the impact of haunting on the people who are going through it. I wanted to tell the people's stories, and that is the only place where Sarva and I might sometimes have had some kind of disagreements, because Sarvajit might have told me the story in some way, but then I used to, get the human story out of him. I used to prod him, and sometimes I would tell him that ye nahi chal raha hai, this is not working, this is not working. We rejected a couple of stories because they were getting too technical.
Yeah.
Sarvajit knows that. We rejected two stories. So that is it. Otherwise, it was all smooth sailing.
nice and very nice. It's good to know. One more question actually. How long was the journey of this book, right from its conception to the fruition? How long was it?
It's for me.
Sarvajit would tell that. Yeah.
Now, I'd like Neil to answer this actually because I have a much more challenging question for Sarva and Pooja after this.
Okay. So I think it took us a year to write the book.
More than
Okay.
that.
It was
actually.
about a year.
Yeah.
But it was not like we were writing all the time. It was not like that. So these were 10 stories. So it was a lot of work. The first work was to collect the stories. The second was Sarvajit had to record the transcript. He had to send it to me. I had to listen. Then I had to structure it in a story way. And it took me 3 days to write each story. I'm in the first draft. The writing itself took me just 3 days to write it through. But the preparation that went in, it would take sometimes a month per story for that. And after that, I would send it to the team, to pairs, to you people, and then you people would read it and then come back to me with feedback. So the feedback was usually, if there's a factual error or something like that. And that was the case. So we took around a year to just write the stories and get all 10 of them. And then I think because of the COVID situation, Hachette took also our publishers, Hachette India, they were very supportive throughout the journey. Their editing, as I say, was top notch, perfect editing. But then getting the book out took a little bit of a time, a while, because other publishers are not even putting their books out at this stage. They are withheld publications for this whole year. But Hachette was so kind to us and so generous that they actually published a book, even though the pandemic is going on. So please guys, support the book. Do get the book, because it is very important that this book works. It is a book that came out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot is at stake.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's amazing. And 1 year actually is still a lesser time. You churned a book really fast, because 1 year is still lesser time to come up with a book like this.
I remember. I was.
I agree. It's a long time.
Yeah. I was giving my 4th year examination, and exam khatam hoga. I'll check my mail, and there will be nearby message. Sir, I have sent the draft. Please check. And मैं बाहर निकल के पढ़ लिया, भैया ये थोड़ा सा अलग लग रहा है, ये ऐसा है. And then we come to a conclusion. Okay, this is how it has to be done.
But Sarvajit, you had all the 10 stories, and the manuscript was completely done. And I, pressed that send button and I sent it to you, all the 10 stories. That feeling I cannot describe. For a year we were struggling and talking. And finally, the 10 stories were done, and I sent the mail to Sarvaji. So that was that was the day I like celebrated.
Finally.
Why is my net freezing? And this brings me to this one challenging question, really difficult question for Pooja and Sarma, both of you. Listen to the question and answer this. Why do you think people should not enter the parapsychological field?
Sad.
Should not enter.
Huh.
You'll have fun with this one.
Should I start?
Yeah, maybe you should.
Yeah, so you shouldn't enter first. Reason being, on a very serious note, it's not all glamorous, or as you see के YouTube पे video देखिए यार मस्त night vision camera में मस्त एकदम they're going to a place having cool stuff, clicking cool photographs with Uncle Mike and everything. That is just one part of what you are seeing. And paranormal ऐसा भी नहीं है, parapsychology or paranormal, it is not even like a coin. Like a coin still has two sides. This has multiple sides, It's not just about two sides, and what you see is just one part. And the reason we say कि आप join करो parapsychology, like we get so many mails every single day pairs को कि we want to join pairs, we want to be an investigator. There are people commenting, I think, in this live stream that please add us to a paranormal group. and I think it's not. Many people say it's not rocket science. Of course, it's not rocket science because it's a complete different science. You cannot compare it to a rocket.
Yeah, and one thing that I would like to mention here, which I think we have been mentioning from a long time now, is that people should not just jump into this field without having a knowledge, like the basic knowledge of it, of how to deal with the other side, because you are ultimately stepping into the unknown. So unless you know how to deal with at least the basic things, because there are a lot of people who are intrigued and, they want to try things out and they step out and try spirit communication. So please don't do that until you know how to deal with the other side. So get the basic knowledge before you step into it. Until then, don't step into it. So that's the answer.
Yeah, that's the only thing actually. Have the right knowledge and do it because you want to do it, not because you are seeing someone do it and you're just trying to copy them. There's so many people and we know them personally, or we have seen them doing, not only here in India but abroad, so many TV shows, and they just try to copy all of them, having mask or something like that, trying to talk in a very dramatic way to the spiritual world. So we have seen all of that, and it's okay if you are doing it, but just make sure you are safe, and just make sure that you're not carrying anyone अपने कंधों पे डाल के अपने घर लेके मत जाओ, and then again you are affected, your family is affected, and that's like a complete different paranormal story that will start happening. And then feel free to call us to investigate. So that is just one thing. Have the right knowledge, and if you have the right knowledge and you feel like हाँ यार मेरे को करना है, then go out, because it is not just about devices. It is a whole lot different experience when you are on the field and you are seeing something that has crossed one most vital step of life, that is death. Like कोई death cross करने के बाद भी वो जिंदा है, आपसे बातें कर रहा है, आपको answer कर रहा है. He has or she has some intelligence that is weird, and that can fuck you up if you do not have the right mindset or if you are not ready for it.
No, we have had a couple of people call us up middle of the night that they were out and they tried communicating and now they don't feel good about it. They feel as if they have an attachment and they need help. And we are like, who the hell asked you to
रात के 2 बजे
2 बजे call. So, we definitely don't want that happening with people. So, please don't get into it unless you know how to deal with it.
Exactly. I'd like to add to this is that don't get into it just because you're curious. If you're curious, you study it. But don't just step into it. Just like that. You don't give an UPSC exam just on a whim, right? You have to prepare for it. Yeah, that's how it is. And that's how it is, a bit like that. And for the uninitiated, since Neil actually brought it up in his point, ScareCon is our paranormal convention. It was Asia's largest paranormal convention that we had held last year and a year even before that.
Yeah.
If you are interested in anything related to the paranormal, want to discuss it with the people who are actually good with it in the media, in the authorship, the investigators who go about it, and all the other things that come. Parapsychology is not only about ghosts;
Yeah.
it's about a lot of other things. If you're interested in any of that, you should be attending ScareCon. I mean, I'd like Sarva to tell us more about it.
Yeah, so unfortunately for the current situation, we had to postpone this year's CareCon, though it was planned for 2 days, and we had a lot of things planned. We were going to collaborate with Neat Bhai, and there were other things we are planning to do during CareCon, but bad times, but it's okay. But the good news is that we are returning back next year, and for next year हमने सोचा कि इस साल हमने 2 दिन का हम नहीं कर पाए, so maybe to compensate that we are having it for 3 days next year, and it starts from October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. So 3 days. It will be a whole lot crazy experience that you can ever imagine. And the good part is the theme is nature horror. So you can imagine a lot of horror stuff coming from the nature and a lot of things that we are planning to do with Neil Bhai and the other people, other stakeholders those who have shown interest in ScareCon. And yeah, we promise that Asia's biggest paranormal convention will stay up to its name next year as well, and will continue to do so from 2021 again.
It will
And who-
definitely will.
And who knows, we may have it at a haunted location.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But okay. Now I'll spill the beans. Now that I've brought the topic, I know हम लोग थोड़ा time से आगे जा चुके हैं. But this one thing. So to those who don't know, so last year's ScareCon, the first venue we called for organizing ScareCon was Mukesh Mills here in Mumbai, because Mukesh Mills, as all of you must know, is one of the most
Yeah.
haunted locations, and everyone knows about it. It's all over the internet and all the investigations that we've done. And we put an inquiry with the owners that we want to do it and everything, and they're like, reply to nahi aaya ek do din. Then the next day, after 2 days, they give me a call and they're like, sir, हम लोग इधर सिर्फ शादियां करवाते हैं, हम लोग paranormal related कुछ नहीं करवाते हैं. And we are like, you are getting people married at a haunted location. It's like a destination wedding that is happening at Mukesh Mills, but you are not allowing people to hold paranormal events or even allowing us to investigate. I don't know, this tendency should change. Because
Hopefully, we have one more year.
yeah, because
Hope that.
and in general as well. Sorry to go totally off topic, but yesterday I tweeted about the Winchester Mystery House. It has 4,000 windows and doors and staircase leading to nowhere, absolutely nowhere, to walls to say. And that place is an iconic place in North America. And here in India, if your house is haunted, यार उसको सस्ते में बेच दो, किसी को बोलना नहीं. So there is a huge business plan out there that can be totally be done if you are open to do business. Netzack Media House is out here to take your property and sell it. But yeah, this is what I just wanted to bring in.
Good. I think we have overshot our time
Yeah.
limit right now. And thanks to Google Meets, who have extended the deadline till March 30th, I think, for unlimited calls.
Yeah.
Any parting shots from all the three of you about this book? I mean, any message you want to give to your viewers and authors?
I think we all four should be gone online.
No, I'll go first.
Yeah.
First because I've got something. So the thing is, guys, do not be scared of horror. So we have always this kind of a mindset that horror is something that you should not read. I'm talking because since we are discussing a book or not watch, but I think that has to change because all of us here, Sarvajit, we have a story right in the book. Pooja has admitted it, Sabio has admitted it, and now I'll admit it. We all were big cowards when we started with, we used to get scared of the smallest of things. I used to get scared of darkness. I used to get scared of so many things. I did not attend funerals because I was scared of dead people, so that kind of thing. But as I started reading horror, as I started writing horror, I became braver and braver. Now I'm not scared of all those things that I used to be scared of.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that you have to challenge your fears. If you feel that you're frightened of something, I remember the first time when I got this Stephen King books. I got Christine and Cujo. I think in college at that time, and I got those books, and I got them because a friend told me. But then I kept the books face down, and I did not see those books for a month because I did not have the guts to read those books. But once I read it, it opened up a whole new world to me. Like, okay, I did not get scared. I mean, I conquered my fears through reading, and now I'm conquering them through writing. Like when I wrote Maya's New Husband, I think it was the goriest book I have written. I wrote about everything in that. There were killings, there was cannibalism, there was a serial killer, there was a gory thing. And I challenged myself to such an extent that now I'm not frightened of those things. So I think instead of shunning horror, instead of saying that horror is bad and horror is taboo just because a few filmmakers have sex with horror and stuff like that, just because of that, I don't think horror should get a bad name. Horror is a wonderful genre to be. The world classics are horror books. Like we have Dracula, we have Frankenstein, The Picture of Dorian Gray. I think we should do that in India now. So we need the support of the readers. Please patronize horror.
Yeah.
That is true, and I believe that horror is one of the most difficult genre along with comedy.
It is.
Hmm.
It is. It's very difficult to write horror, and that is the reason we don't have many horror writers.
That's right.
And I have also noticed, sorry to say, that people who write very well in other genres, when they start writing horror, the same, punch is not there.
Yeah.
Because horror is something that requires a lot of different. I cannot write horror for more than 2 hours or 3 hours in a day. If I write anything else, when I used to freelance, I used to write for like 14 hours a day without breaking a sweat. But now when I write horror, I cannot write more than 2 or 3 hours. And you know what happens? My energy gets drained and I get dehydrated. You must have noticed I am now also drinking a lot of water.
Yeah.
Because when I talk about horror or when I write about horror or when I read it, I get this kind of thing. So I understand that energy goes down.
Yeah.
But then it's also a thrill. It's like sitting on a roller coaster. You
Yes.
just, or bungee jumping, you just jump and then you know the thrill of it.
Maybe we are connected because I'm having my coffee right now.
Okay, so I have a message for the psychics. Those who are having enhanced psychic abilities, those who are reading this book, if you can see things, hear things, feel things which are beyond your 5 senses, you guys are not crazy. We have been called crazy enough for a number of times. You guys are not
Yes.
crazy. And please look, connect with people who can understand you, and there is a lot to explore. Please understand yourselves, and definitely your life will change for the better.
Yeah, and from me, actually, it will be about the book. Please do buy this Spells Talk to Me.
Do that popular.
I will have to bring from there, वहाँ से. I think the time we have taken of more than 1 year is the work that all 4 of us have put into from investigating to putting them in a book and still making it readable and making or having, or how do I say, like justice dena to the client, to their stories, to our point of views, and to Neil Bhai's art of writing those stories. It's a lot. It's not just done by one person. It's a combination of a lot of people who have got together to bring you the Spirits Talk to Me. The stories are lovely, and every time someone says, okay, I love this story, I love that story, it just gives me personally that different feeling. Okay, people are liking the job as in the stories. Of course, I was not underestimating Neil Bhai's writing, but the underestimation was there regarding our stories. Call it humbleness, call it being nervous, or just call it being not very confident. But hota hai, because like I say it at every point, that book was never in our agenda. It was like the last thing we can imagine or plan ke yaar book likhna hai about our stories. It's like every time. So those who don't know, for pairs, many people are thinking it's not live, it's a recording because we are so fluent people. So So what happens is कि the pairs का जो yearly tenure होता है, it starts every August to next year August, and every August the pairs team we plan certain things to do in that 1 year. And since to 2016 to 2040 till 2019 actually we never had a plan के book लिखता है, because we had a lot of things, a lot of the big things like for the YouTube series or like investigating that, going to Kuldara or a lot of that, but book was never, because we believe, or I believe, that book is the most prestigious thing that you can have about yourself. And having a book जिसमें हमारे खुद के stories हैं, let that settle in for the two of you and for myself, is actually very very like we're super honored to actually be published by Hashtag India and to be written by someone like Neel Bhai and to be pitched
Yeah.
by someone like Suhail Bhai. It's an honor, and I think we may not have another opportunity from any other people like that, and I'm pretty sure they'll also not do justice to what we do. And the Spirits Talk to Me is the perfect example, and I think is the perfect book to understand the paranormal, to understand what the investigators go through, and to understand how the spirits talk to us.
Very well spoken, Neil, Pooja, and Sarva. My take upon this book, why you should purchase this book is, I think I've mentioned this to Sarva before, and even in ScareCon, that I myself don't watch horror movies, because the horror movies of the present date employ a lot of jump scares and sudden noises just to scare you. And I'm still waiting for that story which will scare you, which will make your hair stand on its at its end, only by reading the story in its purest form.
Yeah.
And that is something I'm still searching for. And the reason why I ask everybody to read this book is because this book does exactly that. There are no bells and whistles over here, no just like, I mean, just words for the heck of it. This is exactly what we were experiencing over there, and it has been written in a very lucid language. You can see exactly what we had been through over there. Minus its technicalities. Obviously, there are some technicalities and gadgets mentioned over there, but it doesn't take away from the story, the main story or the main experience of the book. You might read a lot about ghosts over there, but then parapsychology is not only about ghosts. As I said, it's also a lot about the science behind the entire investigation and the reasoning, which I think Sarva and Neil have very well captured at the end of every chapter as to why a certain thing was done in a certain way and what would we do with it later on. I think that is the main reason why you should read the book. And secondly, it's like we are into research right now, and a lot of other countries give or grant a lot of grants to their researchers. But staying in India over here and being a land with so many different varied beliefs, we are still not part of any grant. And we have to sustain ourselves over here. So when you purchase books like these, or when you attend ScareCon, or when you support us, that is how we get our encouragement from. Right now, we are called crazy when we read elements, when we go and do our psychic readings. People might call us crazy, but as Neil has already mentioned, there is a certain connection and a certain truth to it. Setting on these foundations, I mean, I always like to, tell even the people who listen to me, I tell them, can you imagine 30 or 40 years down the line, probably we might be dead and gone. But suppose setting on the foundation of our research, if crime starts getting solved by police, or forming some technology or building upon the technology to read the crime scene without much witnesses. The witnesses would be your furniture, your walls, and your floor, and the articles that are there around it, and only communicating with those elements. If crime can be solved, then the value of our research, that the hours of labor that we have put into this, will be seen later on. And that is why I would say support our cause, support the research that we do, the investigations. We put our lives in danger a lot. And I mean, hats off to Sarva and Pooja for getting this together and going through such a thing and putting such a wonderful team like us together over here. I would say read the book and support our cause. That's all I would like to say.
Also, I think before we end, we need to give shout out to our two members, Mayuresh and Neeraj. Thank you for joining or being members of this channel. For others who wish to become members of our channel, there is a link to join. You have 3 options to join us, and when you join those 3 tiers or one of those tiers, you get exclusive things that none of the other people get to see.
There's a video on it. Maybe you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
watch that and you can get more information about it,
Yes.
and that will be a huge support for pairs.
Yes, and please do subscribe if you are new to this channel. It will be amazing. Again, like Savio Bhaiya said, it will be a great support for us. And yeah, we are almost 10 subscribers away from 2,500. Make it happen, people. But yeah, thank you so much, Savio Bhai, for moderating. Thank you so much, Neil Bhai, for taking out the time.
Thank you.
It was so
And I
amazing.
think-
Yes. Have you asked like perfectly on the dot? Very good question. Very well done. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
should all meet. Neil Bhai, you should come on 11th.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please.
that
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm there.
We all are COVID free. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be there. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. Actually. Yeah.
Sure. Chalo,
Alright.
awesome. Everyone, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
To all those
Thank
who are
you.
viewing,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for joining in.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.